Smith. We moved to Salem in 2007. I spent my first career in the Air Force. I was 28 years in active duty, retired as a brigadier general, spent most of my time as a fighter pilot. And then from 2009 to 2013, I served as the U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Now, the last couple of nights I've been to different places, and they actually wanted to talk less about the campaign and more about what's going on in the Middle East. So I can do that if you want to when we're done. I first met Amy in June of 2009. She was on the Senate subcommittee where I did my hearing in front of the Senate to go to Riyadh. If you've ever watched people at a Senate hearing, you know it is an event that creates some trepidation on your part because you never know what the cameras are looking at and if there's a senator that's going to come in with an agenda and you're going to be the target of it. So there are three of us. We're sitting there to be questioned. Senator Shaheen Jeannie was kind enough to introduce me. As she finished introducing me, in walks Al Franken of Saturday Night Live fame, former senator. And he and Amy then got into a verbal jousting match. And I quickly learned that Al Franken was not the funniest senator in Washington. He wasn't the funniest senator in Minnesota. But that humor put everybody to rest. And as I worked with her over these last 6 months, she has an incredible sense of humor. She won an award in college for improv. I will pay to see her debate Donald Trump because she will slice him with humor, and she's just got a wonderful personality. But she's one of us. She's a human being. She's from the Midwest. I watched her over the next decade, and when I was deciding on a candidate, I was looking for three things. The first one was someone who had a track record of actually accomplishing something in government. She is ranked as the fifth most successful senator for getting legislation passed. She has the 33 bills to her name that have passed, gone into law, over 100 bills that she sponsored or co-sponsored, an incredible record of bipartisan legislation. And as she says, she's a progressive that has actually progressed, moving the ball forward. So I give her great credit and respect for the work that she's done for all of us over that time. Second thing I'm looking for is who can actually win the election. And it's not a popularity contest. It's the Electoral College, and we're really talking about 5 states. 8 maybe, but 5 states. And they're all in the Midwest: Wisconsin, Michigan, to a lesser degree Minnesota. Trump lost Minnesota by a percentage point and a half. Pennsylvania, Ohio, and maybe Iowa. Whoever wins those is going to win the election. Amy's the only candidate with a track record of winning statewide elections in that part of the country. And in fact, in the last election where Trump lost Minnesota by a point and a half, she won with 60% of the vote. She actually won 43 counties that Trump won in the last election. So she's got a reputation for winning in that part of the country. And I think part of that comes from her roots. Her father was a miner. She identifies with middle America and middle class. She has a great capacity to talk with people, not to them. And that's one of the reasons why on health care, she's supporting a public option, but not Medicare for all as it's been defined. Because she doesn't think union workers, for example, that have spent decades negotiating labor deals ought to lose all that if that's what they want to keep. So she wants Americans to have choice on health care, but she thinks all Americans should have health care. And then finally, I'm looking for somebody that the day after inauguration can start to bring the country back together again. The extremes of both parties are driving the country apart, and I think we need somebody to help put us back in a position where we're having conversations with each other. As Janet said, find a way to talk instead of tweeting to each other in the worst possible way. So that's why I became a surrogate for Amy. Been working the campaign since last April, and I hope you'll come out and vote for her. But thank you.
How do you think she did in the debate?
I think she did well. She has been criticized for forgetting the name of the governor of Kansas, which was the fourth person she was trying to remember. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so I'm going to cut her a little slack on that one. Really, nobody broke out in the debate. We have a lot of good candidates and good people. So I thought people as a whole made the case that they were trying to make. But she's done very, very well on the last 3 debates because she's actually been given some airtime.
And can you talk to us about her climate plans for climate change?
An incremental approach, but yes, to get back into the Paris Accords, and to move us back on the plan for, I want to say it's 2040. I spend most of my time doing foreign policy, so I'm not as well schooled on the climate. But yes, to get back into kind of where President Obama was and then keep us going.
Thank you very much. Our next person who's speaking for their candidate is for Elizabeth Warren. Is anybody here for the Warren campaign? No, Misha.
Our organizer's not here.
Oh, she's not here. Okay.
You know what? Here, I'll give a pitch for an event this weekend.
Okay, excellent.
Hello. You can contact the Elizabeth Warren campaign organizer in Hudson. His name is Misha, and his phone number is, I'm going to give it out on television, 207-671-0115. And if you are curious about Elizabeth Warren, I encourage you to come to one of our events this weekend. We have canvases leaving in North Hudson. Misha can tell you all about that. And then at 12:30 on Wednesday, I am hosting Congresswoman Lori Trahan. Not 12:30 on Wednesday, 12:30 on Sunday. And you can come hear her pitch for why you should vote for Elizabeth and have some snacks and meet my dog. Thank you. Sunday at 12:30.
Misha has been here many times, and some of the campaigns have been at our meetings several times in a row. So we're well versed on Elizabeth Warren's policies and how she feels on things. Next person's representing Pete Buttigieg. That's all right. I had the hardest time until George Stephanopoulos went over Ahmadinejad. So please tell us how to pronounce his name, and
Sure.
then
It's Pete Buttigieg. We have some stickers that have Buttigieg on them that I can hand out after. But to introduce myself, my name's Aiden. I'm an organizer actually covering Nashua, but I live in supporter housing here in Hudson, in the Fox Hollow condominiums just off Lowell. Chloe Hunt is our organizer for Hudson. She's fresh off the Bashir campaign in Kentucky and just joined us here on the ground. And this is Yale, who is one of our volunteers who has come in from Jersey and is joining us all the way through to the primary. So I have been here since October. I first met Mayor Pete back when he was running for mayor back in South Bend, which was a very different setting, but one in which it was very clear already the type of person he was. He was the kind of person who could reach out to people, put forward a bold progressive message while explaining to people how we're going to get there and the pathway to get there. He's always believed in reaching out, making sure that we can make the argument, make the explanation to everyone, and try to show them why it's important and how we get there. And I think that he's been doing that on this campaign as well. He's been reaching out to everyone, trying to explain that our country, and I don't think I have to tell this to this room here, is at a moment of crisis. We need to define where we're going to go in the future, what the next stage of this country is going to be, because the last couple of years have not been working. and something's been broken in our system that we need to address. And we can do that through bold, progressive action, but that action can include the voices of everyone in this country. A couple quick things coming up. We are going to have Pete's husband, Chasten, in the office on Saturday. He's going to be launching our canvases at 1 o'clock. And then we will have Pete himself up in Concord tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Any questions?
Where's that office?
Oh, sorry. The office is in Nashua at 37 Main Street. It's right across the street from Riverwalk Cafe. It's in a space that used to be called Just Lights.
I'm sure the address is adequate, so, and at 1 o'clock, you said?
At 1 o'clock, yes, on Saturday. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pete Sessions, and I'm the treasurer. So Grace asked me to take over since both the chairman and co-chairman are now indisposed. So the next one we want to hear from is from the Deval Patrick campaign. Going once? Going twice? The next one I have then is the Andrew Yang campaign, please. Please welcome the representative of the campaign. You can introduce yourself, sir. I don't recall your name.
Alrighty. What's up, guys? So my name is Henry Duhart. I'm from Florida, so this weather is different for me. But it goes back to show how much I really care about the candidate I support. I first saw Yang maybe a year or so ago on a podcast. It was like an interview podcast before he started getting like the bigger interviews, and I was like, hey, here's this guy that resonates with me. And what shocked me the most was that he was just some regular Asian guy. Like, he was just this regular Asian guy, and he's, like, as you can see, African American. And, for me, it helped. It was just this weird transformation because back home down south, it's a lot of, tribalisms, a lot of people just kind of like a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting and no real solutions. And then something about when I seen him, he was just speaking and I was just like, wow, everything you're saying is resonating with not just now, but you're planning for the future, which I don't hear a lot. I hear everybody keep talking about we got to make a better future for our kids, but there's no plans for us. A lot of these solutions are now solutions, which we do need, but he also has future solutions. So I started studying him more, and the more and more I study him, the more and more I was like, man, I used to be a Bernie guy, but for whatever reason, I'm Yang Gang now. So I joined the Yang Gang. He was more well-rounded than I felt maybe Bernie was on certain situations, and I felt he crossed lines, and I thought that was the best thing about him because at this state in our country, we don't need just necessarily a Democrat to win, but a Democrat who can win, but also just unify everyone, no matter what their party is. And I've seen how Andrew Yang has touched people even in other parties and independents. Here in New Hampshire, there's a lot of independents and a lot of undecided. In Florida, you're either one or the other. We don't really have a lot of that happening. But here, I've had some of the best conversations with Republicans, with Democrats, with independents about Yang. And they all see him as a unifying character. So when you tell me about electability, there's no more electable. There's no more electable than someone who can cross barriers. Yes, we love each of our Democratic candidates because whoever wins, we need to support them anyways. But Yang has showed that he can cross barriers, and that's really what we do need because I forgot someone said it. Unfortunately, it kind of is a popularity contest. The election cycle has changed. And it's not what it used to be. And I think he's the best tool for an election cycle that we don't necessarily understand because there's so many unknowns. Because many would say Donald Trump wasn't electable, but we're here. So I feel like going at it at the regular way, going at the institutional way we've been doing it for years is the last thing we need to do because we'll be looking just like last term. So Yang is that guy for me, So the three things that I like the most, let's start with the first thing. He wants to give everybody $1,000 a month. And everybody always asks about that. So basically, talk to my fellow millennials. We know, and anyone else, but we know that we give our data to people. We know we give our data to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You've heard the spiel, and anyone who has it, you give your data to people. And if you've noticed, sometimes you can have looked at something and you happen to get advertisements for that particular thing on your phone you just looked at. That's because they're selling your data. That's because the things you're giving them, they're making a profit from. And you don't see as giving your name or any of that as profit, but technology and the things that they're doing with advancement is becoming like the new oil. Your data is the new thing. It is the thing that will be, technology will determine who's the new power of our world soon. So that's why I think it's very important that we must update our technology and update our country, because we're so far behind. And UBI is the perfect fix, I think, on a universal level. Again, it's not for any particular demographic, any particular class. It's for everybody, and it helps eliminate the stigma of it being for one particular person. And in one move, I think help fix the wealth gaps that we've had in this country, depending on what community you come from. There's different reasons why we are where we are, whether you come from a disenfranchised Jewish community, Black community, Hispanic community. It doesn't really matter. Everyone has a story, and I think the UBI is a universal way to kind of help fix that wealth gap for everybody. It will come from where? The tech companies, Amazon, all these places are not paying taxes. Do you got to pay taxes? Do you got to pay taxes? I got to pay taxes. We all have to pay taxes. So this is not some getting the money from the government. This is getting money from the people that we all know are not paying taxes, and they're using our data to make their profits. So that's where most of the money would come from. And I think, you kind of got he says it better than I do because he's a cool guy. I'm just, I love to knock doors and organize people. That's kind of what I do. But that's kind of his UBI platform, and he can go better into detail about it. But it really is universal in the way that I think it will help fix the wealth gap from different communities across the country. His next thing is human-centered capitalism. So a lot of people would say that Yang is a socialist. In an extent, he believes that everyone has a piece to the solution. So he does have a plan for human-centered capitalism. He believes that capitalism isn't a problem. It's just the rates are determined on money and not people. So he feels like a human-centered capitalism would be us, how far we are and how good we are and how good we're doing as a country should be weighed on how the people are doing, not on the profits or the money. So human-centered capitalism gives power to the mother who may not work but takes care of their child while the father's at work, or especially if it's a child with a disability like Andrew. I have family members who do work that is not paid for, but it really is some of the backbones of our country, whether it's a grandmother taking care of her child's daughter while she's getting her college degree or whatever. Those are the things we don't see as work, but that's some of the most hardest work that people do in our country. So he believes that we should recenter how good we are doing and how far we are by not the money, but how the people are doing and the human beings are doing. 3, his last thing I would like to talk about is the giving money. So basically instead of big corporations being able to give money, and instead of having to go ask for money from big corporations, he would like to give everybody $100 to give towards the candidate of their choice. I believe this on a long run will give more people buying power and talking power when it comes to even local elections. Because a lot of times, if you're impoverished or you're living trying to paycheck to paycheck, you don't have a lot of time to give money to the candidate that you may most support or may most support you. So this will be giving every American citizen during the election cycle $100 to give towards a candidate of your choice. I believe that's a great direction to go so that people no longer have to go kiss up to the big businesses, and we can actually get some money towards that. I think a lot of people, especially in communities where I'm from, will get more involved if they felt they had some more buying power, in choosing which candidate that they wanted as well. This man has 100 different policies. And I didn't know I was going to talk tonight, but I think I did a pretty good job at it. But like I said, the man, he inspires people. I could talk about the little things, but I worked on the campaign. I've seen the glare in kids' eyes. I've seen kids come to Yang's events, 14, and not just photo op, kids who came, and you can see that their parents only came because that kid came. And you can see that their parents fully supported Yang because of what they seen, what they did to his kids. And to me, that's so powerful to have a candidate like that. He's new, he's fresh. Give him a chance. Electability doesn't matter anymore because we didn't think Donald Trump would be elected. It must be something deeper. And I think we got to start trying something different in the Democratic Party and start thinking about the future. And climate change, somebody asked about climate change. His views on climate change is this, and I love this view on climate change. Climate change is about the now. Global warming is something we need to do for the future, but climate change has already happened. Where I'm from Florida. We drowning. Okay, there's nothing you can even do if you wanted to because climate change is what is happening now. So I like him because he's not just talking and trying to fight in the House in the sense of just fighting about it. He believes that we need to start actually taking real steps to just the new transitions. It's more about adaptation to what has already happened. So in Florida, he's about innovation and using technology and different things to kind of combat anything that's happening, the different changes around the country. So I'm definitely for that kind of mindset to start going to like actual solutions for climate change instead of kind of running around with our heads cut off like we do in Florida. When algae blooms come, he's about like, let's get real solutions. Like, let's go and figure out what we need to do before it happens, because it has already happened. That is all I have, guys. Any questions at all?
I just don't remember. I've heard him speak before. Does the universal basic income, is it universal or does it stop at a certain point?
Universally, do you mean you got to be an American citizen to get it?
No. How, your income?
It would be $1,000 a month just there.
I meant, do you qualify for it?
Oh, who qualifies?
Yeah, did he have a cap? Like if you make over $500,000 a year, you don't get it?
No, it would be for any American citizen when you turn 18 years old. And the reason he gives for that, and he's given it multiple times, a lot of times it's not about that. A lot of times, if you make it to where only a certain person gets it, that's where that kind of like stigma starts coming of, well, I'm working for it and you're getting paid, blah, 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 or I deserve it, you should be paying it. So this automatically just, every citizen, when you turn 18, no matter what class you're in, whether you're homeless, does not matter. You get it no matter who you are, and everyone is already paying into it. You're already not getting anything for your data. You're just giving it away for free. So that will pay for most of it, and he says he wants to do it that way because it will break the stigma of people thinking it's for one and the other, which I see a lot. Like we spoke to somebody who was an independent about Yang, and he didn't take our brochure, but we had a great 10-minute conversation on his porch step about how he feels capitalism is what's best and how he feels like social programs are being misused. So in a sense, when you try to make as many things not stereotypical and create stereotypes, and if you can eliminate it that way, it may not seem what's best, but I think on the long run, the UBI will outlast something like that. And it was championed by people before Yang. MLK tried to get a UBI pass before when he was assassinated. So Obama has talked about it and has been a part of our country's history for a while, actually, getting some kind of universal basic income. Okay. In Alaska, and ask people in Alaska.
The thing with that is that they would basically tax companies that are using the data.
Transactions, any transactions, so Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, any transactions concerning the data, ads, YouTube ad, everything. And also once AI kind of takes over, which I don't see it much here necessarily yet, but back home in Florida, like McDonald's, Burger King, all that stuff is one manager, a cook, and computers.
Oh, no kidding.
That's
Right in
it.
the kitchen, you mean?
That's it. It's just when they're working on trying to replace cooks eventually, and they have started testing semi trucks that will drive themselves. So this will eventually tax like every mile on that semi truck that no longer has a human being in it. That mile will be taxed. Any restaurant, once they start doing these kiosks, any robotics will now basically be taxed, because it's not a bad thing. We have outgrown our society. It's time for us to go to the next innovation as Americans. So I think it feels like we're lazy because we're letting robots come, but really that's just an extension of our minds. And he's saying like, let's aid the human people with kind of like our innovation kind of is making us losing our jobs because we're creating these things, but it's not a bad thing. My grandma told me like a shark can never outgrow its tank if you don't give it a bigger one. So we've outgrown this tank as Americans. So he's trying to put us into a bigger tank because it's now trying to figure out, okay, what's the next thing for America? What's going to make us great? What's going to make us innovative? And regardless of who wins, Andrew has said like he's down to support everyone. Like I love everybody, and to be honest, I've thought about even if one person wins, this is like the most amazing cabinet I've ever seen. And I think people should say that more often. Like, no matter who wins, this is the most amazing cabinet if you really think about it, when it comes to the Democratic Party. All right, guys, I'm sorry I took too long.
Thank you. Here, Yang. Okay. Very well done. Okay, next we'd like to hear from the Bernie Sanders campaign.
I don't think they're here.
No Bernie Sanders campaign? Well, the last one on my list is the Joe Biden campaign. Do we have it going once for Joe Biden, going twice? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for attending, and to all the candidate representatives who came, we want to thank you all for taking your time to spend with us, our little Hudson group. I'm happy to see, though, that this is the real Hudson group. We had a meeting here for somebody, who was it, like, yes, Dulcie And the people who were in here were all ringers. They were all like, I had Make America Great Again hats, and they were not from Hudson. And so the views you heard today are the views of the people who really live here and vote here in Hudson. So thanks for taking your time today. Okay.